Saturday, August 4th, 1984, 1:52 a.m. The glass hit the table first. Wet, cold, beating condensation in a room that was too hot. The kind of drink that comes with a smile you don't trust. The kind that gets delivered right before someone closes the door behind you. Eddie Van Halen stared at it. Crystal glass. Expensive liquor. Ice still crackling. Behind him, the rope was already latched. Two bouncers in dark suits stood shoulder to shoulder at the door, not watching the room. Watching Eddie. Vic Carbone leaned against the bar, grinning like he'd just done Eddie the biggest favor of his life. And at the corner table, Leon Lenny Glass sat with his hands folded on the lacquered wood, not drinking, not smoking, just waiting. The neon signs outside VIP Room B painted everything red, then blue, then red again. Smoke hung in the air like a curtain. The bass from the main floor was muffled, distant, like the rest of the world had been locked out. Eddie's guitar sat on the booth beside him. Cash scattered across the table like confetti. Champagne bottles sweating in silver buckets. And Eddie knew, before anyone said a word, that this wasn't a celebration. This was an acquisition. What happened in the next 12 seconds didn't just get Eddie out clean. It exposed the one thing most rock stars never figure out until it's too late. How to recognize a trap the second you taste it. West Hollywood in 1984 wasn't just clubs and cocaine. Oh, it was a hunting ground. The Mirage Lounge didn't exist to make rock stars feel special. It existed to collect them. The kind of place where free drinks had interest rates and VIP rooms came with contracts you didn't know you were signing. Photographers who knew which hallways to wait in. Girls who knew which tables to sit at. Men in tailored suits who knew exactly how much a signature was worth when you were too tired to read the fine print. And by August 1984, Eddie Van Halen was exhausted. Van Halen had just finished the biggest tour of their career. Jump was still all over the radio. MTV couldn't stop replaying their videos. Arena after arena, sold out. 20,000 people screaming every night. Money pouring in so fast the accountants couldn't keep up. Eddie was burned out. Not just physically, mentally, emotionally. Tired of everyone wanting a piece. Managers, lawyers, promoters. Industry guys who shook your hand with one palm and held an invoice in the other. That's how they got you in this town. Not with violence, with paperwork. With photos that didn't show anything but could be made to mean everything. With favors you never asked for that suddenly came with a bill. Ray Razor Martinez had been Eddie's security for 3 years. Ex-bouncer from East L.A., ex-boxer. Hands like cinder blocks. The kind of guy who could walk into a room and immediately know which corner the problem was coming from. Ray didn't like the Mirage Lounge. He'd told Eddie that on the drive over. Said something about the place felt staged. Said they should skip it. Head back to the hotel. Get some sleep before the next leg of the tour. But Vic Carbone had been persistent. Vic owned the Mirage. Smooth talker, always smiling, always offering. He'd called Eddie's hotel 3 times that week. Just swing by for one drink, he'd said on the final call. Got someone who wants to meet you. 5 minutes, that's it. Eddie should have hung up. But he was tired. And when you're tired, you make decisions you wouldn't make with a clear head. You say yes to things that sound harmless. You walk into rooms you should have walked past. So at 1:40 a.m., Eddie and Ray walked through the front entrance of the Mirage Lounge. The main floor was chaos. Music pounding through blown-out speakers. Lights strobing. Women in sequined dresses dancing on elevated platforms. Men in silk shirts throwing cash at the bar. The usual circus. Vic met them at the door. Big smile. Firm handshake. Gold watch catching the light. Eddie. Man, I'm glad you came. Come on, let me get you away from this noise. Got a quiet spot in the back. Ray stayed 2 steps behind as Vic led them through the crowd. Past the main bar. Past the pool tables, where men in expensive suits pretended not to stare. To a velvet rope in the far corner, guarded by a hostess in a red dress. Behind the rope, VIP Room B. Vic unhooked the latch. Gestured inside like he was presenting a gift. Right through here, Won't take long." Eddie stepped inside. The room was smaller than he expected. One curved leather booth, a low black table, champagne already opened, glasses already poured, cash laid out on the surface, not messy, arranged, decorative, like proof of concept, and 3 people waiting. Leon Lenny Glass sat at the far end of the booth. Expensive gray suit, calm expression, hands folded like a businessman waiting for a meeting to start. 2 bouncers stood by the back wall, younger than Ray, quieter, watching without expression. And near the small bar in the corner, a woman in a red dress stood holding a champagne bottle, nervous smile frozen on her face. Roxy Lane, blonde hair, red lipstick, heels that made her wobble slightly. She looked like she'd been told to be there, but hadn't been told why. Vic closed the door behind them. The music from the main floor became muffled, sealed off. "Eddie, this is Lenny," Vic said, still wearing that smile. "Lenny does some consulting work for the Mirage. Wanted to talk to you about a business thing, real quick." Lenny didn't stand, didn't offer a handshake, just nodded once. "Have a seat," he said. His voice was calm, almost warm. Eddie sat. Ray stayed standing behind him, arms crossed. Lenny reached into his jacket, pulled out a glossy envelope, set it on the table between them, next to the cash and champagne. Heavy, expensive, the kind of envelope that doesn't carry good news. "You know how this city works," Lenny said. "Cameras everywhere, stories everywhere. Everybody's got something to sell." Eddie looked at the envelope, didn't touch it. "What's that?" he asked. "Insurance," Lenny said. "We've been keeping an eye out for you tonight, making sure certain things stay private, making sure certain photos don't end up in the wrong magazines." Eddie's jaw tightened. "I didn't ask you to do that." "No," Lenny agreed. "But we did it anyway. Professional courtesy." He pushed the envelope closer. "Open it." Eddie didn't move. Ray shifted his weight slightly. Not a threat, just a reminder that he was there. Vic was still smiling by the door, but his eyes weren't smiling anymore. Roxy stood frozen by the bar, champagne bottle trembling in her hands. Lenny waited, patient, like he had all night, like he'd done this before. Finally, Eddie reached for the envelope, opened it slowly. Inside, a glossy invoice on Mirage Lounge letterhead, itemized charges. VIP courtesy services rendered, $9,800. A signature line at the bottom, blank and waiting, and beneath it, 3 photo strips, Polaroids, time-stamped, not explicit, just convenient. Eddie seated in this booth, Roxy leaning close, hand on his shoulder, glasses raised, smiles that could mean anything, photos that told no story, or photos that could tell any story someone wanted to sell. Eddie set them down slowly, carefully. "What do you want?" he asked. Lenny leaned forward slightly, hands still folded. "A signature. You sign the invoice. You acknowledge the services we provided tonight. You cover the tab. And then we make sure these photos stay private. Nobody gets embarrassed. Nobody gets a story twisted. Clean exit." "And if I don't?" Lenny smiled. "Not cruel, just matter of fact." Then Monday morning, these photos are on every tabloid desk in Los Angeles, and the story writes itself. Eddie Van Halen's wild night at the Mirage Lounge. We don't have to say anything explicit. We just let people imagine. Vic stepped forward, hands open, helpful. "Eddie, man, Lenny's trying to help you here. This is how we keep things professional. Nobody wants drama. Just sign the paper, pay the tab, move on, easy." Eddie looked at Roxy. She was staring at the floor now, hands shaking. And Eddie realized something. She wasn't part of the plan. She was part of the set, the prop, the girl who'd be blamed when this went wrong. If Eddie made a scene, if Ray got violent, if bottles got smashed and suits got bloody, Roxy would be the one who paid. She'd lose her job. Maybe worse. That's how these traps worked. The rock star walks away. The girl gets destroyed. Eddie took a slow breath. He looked at the invoice, the signature line, the photos. He understood now. This wasn't about money. It was about control. About getting Eddie locked into an agreement he couldn't dispute. About leverage. About making sure that every time Eddie walked into a room in this city, someone had proof he owed them something. Ray's hand moved slightly toward his jacket. Eddie could feel the room tightening. And then Eddie did something that changed everything. He pushed the envelope back across the table. Slowly, deliberately, like he was returning something that didn't belong to him. "Take your paper back," he said quietly. The room went still. Lenny's expression didn't change, but something in his eyes sharpened. "You don't want to do that," he said. "I'm doing it," Eddie replied. "You don't understand how this works," Lenny continued, voice still calm. "These photos don't stay private just because you want them to. Tabloids don't care about your version. You walk out of here without signing, and by Monday morning, every magazine in the country is running something. Eddie Van Halen's late-night party at the Mirage. We won't even have to lie." Eddie looked at him for a long moment. "You want me to sign a bill for services I didn't ask for?" Eddie said. "You want me to acknowledge I owe you money for photos I didn't know you were taking. And if I don't, you're going to sell pictures that don't show anything except me sitting in a room." Lenny smiled slightly. "That's about right." Eddie looked at Ray, then back at Lenny. "The second I sign," Eddie said, "I'm not a musician anymore. I'm a receipt." He stood up. The bouncers by the wall tensed. Hands moved toward their jackets. Eddie picked up the envelope, held it out to Lenny. "We're leaving," he said. "Now." Lenny didn't take it. "You're making a mistake." "Maybe," Eddie said. "But it's mine to make." Vic stepped forward. "Eddie, come on, be reasonable." "Move," Ray said. His voice was low, final. The room held its breath. 4 seconds, 5, 6. Lenny looked at Vic. Vic looked at the bouncers by the wall. And then Lenny leaned back in the booth, exhaled slowly. "You're gonna regret this," he said. "I'll take my chances," Eddie replied. Ray opened the door. Eddie walked out first. The envelope stayed on the table. The main floor was still packed. Music still pounding. Lights still flashing. Nobody noticed them leave. Outside, the Los Angeles night was warm and hazy. Street lights buzzing. Cars passing on Sunset. The sound of distant sirens. Eddie stopped on the sidewalk. Took a breath of air that didn't taste like smoke and cologne. Ray was already scanning the street, making sure nobody followed them out. And then the door opened behind them. Roxy stepped out, shaking, eyes red. She looked like she'd been holding her breath for the last 5 minutes. "I'm sorry," she said quickly, voice breaking. "I didn't know they were going to do that. Vic just told me to bring drinks and smile. I swear I didn't—" Eddie held up a hand. "It's not your fault," he said. "They're gonna fire me," she said, tears starting. "They always do. When someone doesn't sign, when the play doesn't work, they blame the girl and—" Eddie reached into his jacket, pulled out a folded stack of cash, handed it to her. "Don't let them charge you for tonight," he said. Roxy stared at the money, then at Eddie. "I can't." "Take it," Eddie said. "Get your stuff. Go home. Don't go back in there." Ray stepped closer to Roxy. "I'll make sure she gets to her car," he said quietly. Eddie nodded, looked at Roxy one more time. "You didn't do anything wrong," he said. "Don't let them tell you different." Then he turned and walked toward the street. Ray stayed with Roxy until she got to her car safely. Made sure nobody followed her. Made sure the Mirage bouncers stayed inside. By the time Ray caught up with Eddie, he was already 3 blocks down Sunset. Hands in his pockets, head down, just walking. "You all right?" Ray asked. "Yeah," Eddie said. "I'm all right." They walked in silence for a while, past closed storefronts, past late-night diners, past billboards advertising albums and movies and dreams. You know those photos are probably going to surface anyway, Ray said. Probably. And people are going to talk. They always do. Ray looked at him. So why didn't you just sign? Pay them off? Make it go away? Eddie stopped walking, looked back toward the neon glow of the Mirage Lounge in the distance. Because once you sign, he said, they own you. And I didn't come this far to let somebody own me, because I was too tired to say no. He started walking again. Besides, he added quietly, that girl didn't deserve to lose everything because I wouldn't play their game. Ray nodded slowly. That's why you gave her the money. Yeah. Within 72 hours, word spread through West Hollywood. Not in tabloids, just whispers between people who knew people. Security guys talking to other security guys. Club managers on late-night phone calls. Eddie Van Halen walked into a setup at the Mirage. Lenny Glass tried to shake him down with photos and a fake tab. Eddie walked out, didn't sign, didn't pay. The photos never ran. No scandal, no story. A label rep called Eddie's manager Tuesday morning. We heard about the Mirage. Don't send him near that place again. Leon Lenny Glass kept working the clubs for a while, but his reputation took a hit. Word got around that his play at the Mirage had failed. Within a year, he'd moved to Vegas. Smaller operations, quieter rooms, faded into the background. Roxy Lane quit the Mirage Lounge 2 weeks later. Used Eddie's money to get an apartment in Burbank. Eventually got out of the club scene entirely. Started working at a recording studio. Safer work. Better hours. Real power isn't what you can do in a room. It's what you refuse to sign in a room. That's what made him dangerous. And different.